Hey guys, welcome back to week 43 of the MIT Challenge, which is to learn MIT's 4-year computer science curriculum in 12 months without taking any classes or even being enrolled in MIT. So today I want to talk about how do you read a textbook. Since I've started this MIT Challenge, I've done a lot of classes which are only based on the textbook. There's no lecture videos, and the other internet resources aren't robust enough so that I'm basically learning everything from reading a textbook or a set of course notes. And I've developed a system for being able to learn these ideas in the shortest amount of time so I can cover all the material in a textbook without taking too long, but at the same time retain the most amount of information. So I'm going to talk about two ideas that you can use for reading textbooks today. The first is what's called depth of processing. So I've mentioned this before, but a key to learning is processing the information at a deep level. If you process it at a superficial level, you may think you're learning, but you're going to forget most of it. Whereas in contrast, if you process it at a deep level, you'll remember much more of it. So when you're reading, the kind of implication of this is that if you're doing highlighting, and highlighting is something that I've suggested in the past and I've since moved away from, but if you're doing highlighting of a textbook, that's a fairly shallow level of processing. Maybe you just recognize by the pattern of information, oh, this is an important definition, but you're not really understanding it. You're not really letting it sink in. So what you want to do is you want to have the technique you're using while reading foster this deep level of processing without making it take a lot more time, without just going through the textbook so meticulously it takes you days and days to read through it. So because I've been working under a strict time constraint, the system that I've used is just to take course notes. And so I use the flow-based note-taking style that I've mentioned before, and I use this for course notes. So this right here is an example of a chapter in this economics book that I'm doing. And you can see here that I'm writing down just brief points, what it is, and when they mention a new idea or a new theory, I'll briefly jot it down and try to give an example. And this allows you to work in a lot of those holistic learning techniques, analogies, metaphors, creating examples, rewording things in your own words, explaining it as if you're explaining it to someone else. And you can do these in the notes, and when you're reading the chapter, you just write these down. And the key, if you don't want this to take a lot of time, because some people don't like taking notes when they're reading a book because they feel it takes too long, is two things I've found help. One is that you can write in the textbook itself, so this sort of naturally constrains you to not do as much writing, not to be as voluminous in your writing. And then the second thing is to just not take as many notes. So a lot of people, when they're taking notes, they want to have this perfect copy of the information that they can look at later. Now, particularly with a textbook, because you can always go back and search the index and reread a chapter if you didn't understand it, that's not the goal. The goal of the notes is to promote a deep level of processing, not to have this perfect set of transcription, because of course you can just read the textbook again if you need or you forget the ideas. So even if you only take, let's say, what would be the equivalent of a paragraph or two of notes for an entire chapter, it doesn't take that much time, but you're still fostering this deep level of processing. The second idea is recognizing what's important for a textbook. And so if you know what you're supposed to be retaining, how you're supposed to be reading it for a particular type of textbook, that can greatly increase your effectiveness for it. So for the MIT classes, a lot of them are very quantitative in their assessment. I'm going to have to solve problem sets that are going to require algebra and calculus. I'm going to have to solve problems for it. And so, as a result, when I'm going through the textbook, I pay a lot of attention in how they solve problems. So if they give an example problem, I will write down the problem that they're solving, or I'll write down the method that they're solving. For other classes, so when I was in business school, it relied a lot more on qualitative assessment, so it was understanding ideas, not necessarily solving problems with them. And so for this kind of thing, it would be, what's the big idea here? Maybe you have several paragraphs and they're giving a lot of examples and they're giving a lot of, well, this case and that case. What's the big idea? What's the idea? What's the gist of it? And so this isn't just a summary, this is focusing on what's the concept, the big idea that they're trying to teach you in this. And if you can learn that, then the fact that you forgot a few examples or you forgot a few details isn't nearly as important. So those are the two big ideas. One, using this sort of note-taking style of while reading a textbook in order to foster deep level of processing. And that's the key. Anything you can do to foster that deep level of processing will increase your effectiveness. And two, by figuring out how you're going to use the information, that can really hone you in on reading the textbook so you know what's important to transcribe in your notes and to focus on when you're doing your readings. So thanks for following, and I'll be updating you guys in the future weeks as I finish the last set of courses for the MIT Challenge.